Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name's Carter. I love talking about movies, superheroes, and comics. And I just got out of seeing The First Omen, which is the new horror film. I've been getting to a lot of horror the last few years, and so I recently just watched the original Omen from the 70s. And The First Omen is a prequel to the original Omen from the 70s. And honestly, going into this year, I wasn't really looking forward to it because prequels in general, especially horror prequels, aren't really that great. Horror prequels, correct me if I'm wrong, I can't really think of very many off the top of my head, especially very many that are decent. I could be wrong, but I really can't think of any right now. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but going into The First Omen, I wasn't super thrilled. However, the reaction to it the last week has been pretty positive from what I'm seeing, and so I got a little more excited going into this film. And it stars Nell Tiger and Bill Nighy, and it's directed by Arkasha Stevenson, and it's a prequel to the original Omen. I really don't want to say any more than that because I didn't know more than that going in. It just follows a young nun in Rome, and it's a prequel. So if you're into the Omen franchise, I'd probably recommend seeing this one. There's quite a bit here that I enjoyed, especially since I had, again, just watched the original a couple months ago. It was pretty fresh in my mind, and so I was picking up on stuff left and right, like, oh, that's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. So before I dive into my review, have you seen The First Omen? Have you seen all of the Omen films? I've really only seen the first film from the 70s, Richard Donner's film. So let me know down in the comments below. Were you excited for The First Omen? What did you think about it? And where does it fall in your ranking of the Omen movies? Starting out with the positives for The First Omen, I gotta say, this one had such beautiful cinematography and camera work. It blew me away. I was really shocked going into this movie, sitting down and seeing, wow, this looks like a 70s movie. It has the right amount of film grain. I'm not like a massive film nut when it comes to like technicalities and film grain and everything and motion smoothing. So they might have done a lot of stuff differently. I don't know. But from looks perspective, and I again watched the original Omen recently, I was like, wow, okay, this looks like just a more updated high definition 70s movie. Just the way they lit it was very like grungy, very dark, and I loved the way it looked. There's a lot of shots here, especially like foggy long shots that just reminded me of the original Omen so much, and it's just so beautiful and breathtaking, especially in a horror film where I was like, yeah, this is it. I loved the way the shots were framed. There's a lot of just brilliantly placed shots that just make you feel so uneasy, where a character's standing in a door frame and the door frame's just huge. It feels like someone could come up behind her any minute, or there's a bed separating a character and they kind of look under it, or like someone turns a corner and you see half their face. I know it feels like such baseline compliments to hand out, but it just looks so good in the movie, and I loved the way that Arkasha Stevenson framed and placed those shots. It was simply just gorgeous, and I was going crazy for it the whole time. I was super excited. It takes a lot to get me excited about like genuinely great cinematography, but this got me really excited. It looks and feels like a 70s film, and the horror just plays right into it. There are a lot of jump scares in this film, more than I expected. Not all of them are fantastic. There are a few where I was like, oh my gosh, we're doing like a turn the corner and like, oh, hello, jump scare, to where that kind of bugged me more than it should have. I just don't really go crazy for jump scares. When they're done well, they can be really, really, really scary, but they kind of come off as lazy for me. But one thing that I really loved about this movie is its reliance on tone and atmosphere. This is a movie that is just very bleak, very dark, and it just makes you feel very grungy and grimy as you watch it, and you kind of just feel like bad watching it. Like, it's very eerie. You feel a sense of dread, like a very palpable sense of tension while watching this movie, and you're just like waiting for the hammer to drop. Like, you know something is coming. The Antichrist, the figure of the Antichrist, and like all that lore is just looming over. I just whacked my camera. It's just looming over the film in such a horrific manner to where it really got me nervous. It's a very creepy, very eerie movie. It relies very heavily on atmosphere. There's a lot of disturbing imagery in here. There's one small sequence in particular that I was like, how do you show that in theaters? If you're very sensitive with birthing scenes, I wouldn't watch this movie. There's a pretty graphic, not very long, but it's a very graphic scene where I was like, and again, all my props to just the visual aspect of this film, whether that's set design, costume design, set decorating, cinematography, lighting, rigging, everything just looks genuinely beautiful, genuinely 70s. There's so many eerie locations in this film. Just they make a Catholic chapel and an orphanage just feel very, very scary. There's just sequences of Catholic rituals, Catholic rites that for most people, especially Catholics, are probably very normal and every day, maybe not every day, but they're very natural, very holy, and very sacred, I guess is the right word, and they just make it feel kind of eerie and off-putting and unsettling. Which brings me to a point that I really wanted to make, something I really admired about this movie, is that it doesn't paint all of Catholicism in a bad light. It doesn't say organized religion as a whole is terrible. Yes, there is a conspiracy in this film. I'm trying to like dance around spoilers here. If you've seen the original Omen, you know it's about is this kid the Antichrist or not, and you learn some more stuff about like the background of the Omen's perspective of the Catholic Church and the people that I'm trying so hard. Basically, I liked that this movie said there's two different sides of this church. There's the church that you and I are a part of that, fears God, respects God, wants to do good, abhors murder and all this stuff. And then there's the side that, does all these things in the name of God, but they are doing it in the wrong way. They're following the wrong path. I thought that was really cool. I liked the nuance. You don't really see it too often. There's a lot of religious horror movies, and I liked the stance that this took with it. I liked the stance the first Omen had. It felt kind of fresh, and I really liked that. I also enjoyed the way the story played out. It plays out a lot like a mystery. There's a lot of tension and dread hanging over this film. You don't really know what's going on, and it kind of delivers it to you in small portions. Makes you second guess some stuff as you go on to the film, like, oh, was that really real? Is this happening right now? And then another massive positive, my last massive positive, is going to be Nell Tiger is just incredible in this film. She gives such a great performance here. She has so much range in this film, and she just plays like tortured, horrified, and like scared very, very well. And she can just change on a dime. There's so many sequences where like maybe it's a hallucination of her, and then she just like changes. She's like hallucinating or having a nightmare where she's like very unsettled, and then she suddenly switches on a dime and becomes unsettling, like it's just like staring and like grinning. It creeped me out, like made my skin crawl, like I got goosebumps. It was creepy, and I just loved her performance and her dynamic in this film. She was very, very incredible here, and my favorite scene in the whole film was just like absolutely haunting. It's something that I'm gonna remember for a long time, and I'm not gonna spoil it, but basically it's just showing a ton of figures, showing a ton of like background, and you just hear like Nell Tiger, her voice just like kind of talking over it. And it's in the last like 20 minutes of the film. Really not trying to spoil anything, but when you see it, and it just like kind of got under my skin. I was like, that is creepy. Like that's very effective, very creepy, very minimalistic. And then it goes, like full board, like, oh, look at this gross imagery. And I loved the minimalistic part. And I think the gross imagery here was very effective, but maybe a little unneeded at points. But especially in the ending, there was some points where I was like, that is disgusting. And the stuff that got under my skin more was the minimalistic performance by Nell Tiger, the stuff that she did with her performance, I thought worked very, very well. Going into the mixed, like I mentioned, everything about this film is really well done, honestly. I'd say if I had to nitpick one thing, the pacing could have been tightened up maybe just a little bit. If you really want to maximize that dread, they could have maybe tightened up a few sequences, but overall, I thought the film was really well done. However, this is in the mixed, and so what I will say is that this is a film that's just very heavy. It's very, very dread filled, very palpable, very full of tension, like I said before. And so it's not going to be for everyone. This isn't going to be a movie that you can just throw on and say, yeah, this is awesome. It's going to be something that you throw on, you watch, and you're like, that is a lot to take in. For me personally, while this movie did so much right, and I liked so much of it, it held me back a little bit from like absolutely just loving it. Whereas something like Late Night with the Devil, I feel like it just had a little bit more stuff that's my speed. I love horror movies, and I think there's a few of them that can be totally just absolutely daunting. So just hardcore, I think is the right word. And I can rewatch them multiple times. This is going to be one that because of rewatch value, I probably just won't turn it on that much. It's just very heavy film to where I think it's great. If you're on the fence, I would highly recommend going out and seeing this. It's a very effective horror film, and I think that the director and the star, Nell Tiger, both have very bright futures. A lot of people who worked on this film will probably have very bright futures in film, and I would love to see more of them. However, just because of that tone and just how kind of icky I felt watching it, how unnerved, and how I'm feeling now, I'm not sure if I'll rewatch it very often. So that's the only thing holding it back from getting like a really fantastic score. I don't know, as if anyone really like follows my scores so closely besides Waving Knave. I don't really have any negatives. Again, I think this movie was very well done. So well done. It's just, I'm thinking about it right now and just like, ooh, creeped out. Overall, the First Omen gets like a 7.5, 8 out of me. I really enjoyed it. I think everything was done so well. I cannot give enough praise to the camera work, cinematography, the lighting, the performance by Nell Tiger, the direction by Arkasha Stevenson. However, the only thing holding it back is just a little bit of that rewatch value and just that incredibly like heavy, it just has a certain tone to where you feel gross at points watching the film. And for a lot of films, when I rewatch them, I don't really want to feel gross, so that's going to hold it back just a little bit. Anyways, thank you so much for checking this video out. It's been so much fun to record stuff like this, to do stuff like this. But as always, guys, thank you so much for watching. My name's Carter, and have a great rest of your day.